All right, Patrick. Let me ask you something.
A detective leans forward and asks a simple question.
All right?
Yeah.
Do you know what a lie is? A lie?
The boy across the table thinks for a moment.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's when you don't tell the truth and you do something bad.
What happens when you tell a lie?
You get in trouble.
He is 5 years old. This is Patrick Morrissey. 5 hours before this footage was recorded, Patrick was lying in the dark, pretending to be asleep, while two armed men held his parents at gunpoint in the next room. His house was about to be set on fire. His father was about to be murdered. And Patrick, at 5 years old, was about to become the only person who could save his mother's life. Joseph Morrissey was a man who believed in second chances, a science researcher and assistant professor at Nova Southeastern University in Plantation, Florida. Joe spent his days in the lab and his evenings being the kind of father most kids dream of. He was 46 years old, married to his wife Kay for 13 years, and together they had built a quiet, comfortable life just outside Fort Lauderdale. But the decision that defined Joe Morrissey wasn't his career. It was the day he and Kay adopted a little boy named Patrick.
He was a very hands-on father. He was always doing something with Patrick.
Christina, Kay's adult daughter from a previous relationship, watched Joe become the father Patrick needed. He was the dad who got down on the floor to play, who held Patrick's hat while the boy did somersaults in the yard, who fell asleep on the couch most nights because he'd been up since dawn juggling research and family. Kay was the anchor of the household. A devoted mother and wife, she kept the home running. Her craft room was her sanctuary, the one place she went to unwind after long days. Patrick slept in the master bedroom with his parents, a 5-year-old who still liked being close to his mom and dad at night. They lived at 601 Northwest 75th Terrace in a middle upper-class neighborhood in Plantation, Broward County. The kind of street where you knew your neighbors and left your windows open on warm nights. Joe also owned a rental property, a townhouse he leased to a tenant named Randy Tundador. For months, a dispute had been simmering over unpaid rent and unauthorized repairs. On April 5th, 2010, Joe sent a letter demanding the overdue payment and noting a lease violation. It was a routine landlord action, the kind of thing that gets resolved with a phone call or a court filing. Joe Morrissey had no way of knowing that this letter would be the last thing he ever wrote. April 5th, 2010, 10 o'clock at night. Joe has dozed off in front of the television. Kay is still awake in her craft room. Patrick is asleep in the master bedroom, curled up on his father's side of the bed. Sometime around 11:30, Patrick wakes up, but not to an alarm, not to a bad dream, to the sound of his parents screaming. He doesn't get up, he doesn't call out. Instead, Patrick does something remarkable for a 5-year-old. He closes his eyes and pretends to be asleep. He lies still in the dark and listens. He hears a stranger's voice. He hears his mother crying. He hears the sound of something being tightened around his parents' wrists.
And he put these little twine things on my mom and my dad, so they couldn't walk.
The intruder is Randy Tundador Jr., a 24-year-old drug addict who entered through an open window wearing double layers of gloves. His father, Joe Morrissey's tenant, Randy Tundador Sr., is outside with a walkie-talkie directing the operation. Jr. forces Joe and Kay into the master bedroom and pushes them to their knees beside the bed, right next to where Patrick is lying with his eyes closed. He covers their heads with towels. He does not realize the boy is awake. Then Jr. forces Joe and Kay into their own car at gunpoint and drives them to a nearby ATM. Patrick is left alone in the house. In the dark, he hears footsteps outside the window. He pulls the blanket over his head and doesn't move. When the car returns and his parents are marched back inside, Patrick recognizes their voices, but this time he sees something worse. His mother is crying. Towels cover their faces again. And now a second man has entered the house.
And said to Joe that he had to go with him.
Randy Tundador Sr. has come inside, and he has decided that Joe Morrissey has to die. What happens next, Patrick hears but does not see. His father is taken to the family room. Patrick can hear him pleading. He can hear him fighting. And then, silence.
Even when the man was dying, he was fighting for his life and trying to protect my mom and Patrick.
Joe Morrissey's last act on this earth was the same as his first act as a father, protecting the people he loved. The medical examiner would later find defensive wounds on Joe's hands and fingers. He fought until the very end. But the killers aren't done. Tundador Sr. goes to the garage, grabs a gasoline can, and begins pouring fuel around the house. He announces that Kay and Patrick have to go too. Junior refuses. He will not kill a child. The father lights a fire near Joe's body, and the two men walk out the front door, leaving Kay bound and Patrick alone in a house that is beginning to burn.
The alarm, thank God, the fire alarm went off.
Kay Morrissey is tied at the wrists and ankles, lying on the bed in the master bedroom. Smoke is filling the house. Her husband is in the next room and he is not answering her. The only other person in this house is her 5-year-old son. Kay manages to wrench one hand free, but when she tries to stand, she falls and hurts her arms. She cannot walk, she cannot reach the fire, she cannot get to Joe. So she does the only thing she can. She calls out to Patrick.
Yeah, how'd you get out there eventually?
I woke up my son.
And Patrick answers. 5-year-old boy gets out of bed. The house is full of smoke. He cannot see the hallway clearly, but he runs through the smoke, past the fire in the kitchen, to his mother's craft room where he knows she keeps scissors. He grabs a pair and brings them back to the bedroom. Kay cuts herself free.
I saved my mom and got the scissors to cut those.
Wow, you're like a hero.
My mom said.
Patrick crawls to the front door. Kay, now free, rushes to the family room to find Joe. She finds him on the floor, surrounded by what she describes as slippery stuff. She doesn't realize it's blood. She calls his name. He doesn't respond. She drags him through the house and out onto the back patio. He is unresponsive. Kay runs to the front of the house, screaming. Across the street, neighbor David Strickland is woken by his wife, who heard the screams. He opens his door. Standing there is 5-year-old Patrick Morrissey, who looks up at him and says 4 words that will haunt everyone who hears them. When Christina receives the phone call a few minutes later, something tells her to pick up despite the late hour.
Something just told me no, answer the phone.
Mom?
All you could hear were like sirens.
She drives to the neighborhood and finds the road blocked by police cars and fire trucks. She jumps out and pushes past the officers, and then she sees her mother. Kay is in shock.
In her pajamas, completely covered in blood, and I just remember thinking how small she looked and how helpless she looked.
She keeps repeating the same words. He's gone. He's gone. Christina thinks she means the intruders have escaped, but Kay grabs her and says the words no family should ever have to hear.
And she goes, no, Joe is gone. They killed him.
In the weeks that follow, the investigation stalls. Detective Kendall visits Randy Tundador Sr.'s townhouse and finds a man who weighs 300 pounds, wears an oxygen mask, and walks with a limp. He's clearly not the person who broke into the Morrissey home. Police locate and arrest Randy Jr. on an outstanding warrant, but he gives them nothing. Fake names, invented stories, flat denials. They can link his DNA to a gas can found at the scene and Joe's blood to his shirt. But they have no motive, no second suspect, and Jr. will not talk. Meanwhile, Patrick is struggling to understand that his father is never coming home.
He thought that he would look at an airplane and says, my daddy's on that airplane, he's coming home.
Kay insists on a closed casket. She does not want Patrick's memory of his father to be attached to that night. But the case is going cold. Without more evidence, Joe Morrissey's murder may never be solved. And then, someone inside the Tundador family decides to do what his father never would, the right thing.
My dad did it.
Sean Tundador is Randy Sr.'s younger son. He was not involved in the crime, but on the morning of April 6th, when the news breaks about a professor murdered in Plantation, Sean notices something at his father's auto tint business called Gator Tint. A Bowie knife is missing from the display case. There are burn marks in the sink. The parking lot smells like gasoline and ash. Sean confronts his father.
So you need to shut up. He said, I'll kill you if I have to.
The response is not a denial. It's a threat. But Sean doesn't shut up. His father then shifts from threats to boasting, telling Sean that Jr. drove the couple to the bank, that Linda couldn't identify anyone, that the worst evidence the police had was some stolen laptops. And he tells Sean he plans to pin the entire murder on Jr. This is the moment Sean makes his choice. His father has already killed one man, his brother is sitting in a jail cell about to take the fall, and Sean walks into the Plantation Police Department.
I'll find anything you want. I just want to clear my brother's name.
I told them I could prove it. And they told me how, and I told them give me a wire.
Detectives hand Sean a recording device hidden inside a car key. That same night, he sits across from his father, a man who has already threatened to kill him, and begins asking questions. For 2 hours, with one hand in his pocket gripping the device, Sean probes his father while pretending to be worried about the family's well-being. He is 20 years old, he is terrified, and he doesn't stop. The next morning, Sean delivers the device to the police station.
But I wanted my dad to pay for what he did to his family.
When technicians attempt to download the audio, they hear only static and background noise.
To it. There was a lot of background noise, whether it didn't record properly or there was some sort of obstruction in the recording.
For a sickening moment, it seems the wire has failed. The recording is distorted, full of interference. But then, beneath the noise, the audio clears.
You know, Randy, so that he can keep the money to get back. I know he has a bad brother. They got the kids, their kids so big. She gave us that guy for everything. Yeah.
And Randy Tundador Sr.'s voice comes through, confessing everything. The killer used one son to commit the murder. His other son just destroyed him. The trial begins in April 2012. The prosecution's most powerful piece of evidence is not forensic, it's a video. The jury watches 5-year-old Patrick Morrissey sit in an interrogation room and calmly describe zip ties, guns, towels over his parents' heads, and the night his world ended. A child explaining things no child should know. Then Randy Tundador Jr. takes the stand. In a plea deal that reduces his charge to second-degree murder, he testifies against his father. He describes how Sr. manipulated him with crack cocaine, planned the entire operation, directed it by walkie-talkie from outside, and then entered the house to do what Jr. would not.
The fact that he would sit here and say that it was me and my brother who did this and planned this, I feel like that's wrong. You shouldn't do anything to hurt your kids. I think that father's job is to protect his kids, not to hurt his kids.
The jury does not need long. The verdict is unanimous on all 10 felony counts. First-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, armed kidnapping, armed robbery, armed burglary, and arson. They unanimously recommend death. On November 7th, 2014, Judge Cynthia Imperato hands down the sentence. Kay brings 10-year-old Patrick to the courtroom. He wants to be there. When the judge announces death, Randy Tundador Sr. shows no emotion. Kay will later say he was arrogant, that he acted as if he was going to be home for Christmas. 2 fathers sat at the center of this case. One was a professor who adopted a boy, fell asleep on the couch after long days, and spent his last breath fighting to protect his family. The other sacrificed his own sons to save himself. The other had already earned one from his children. Randy Jr. receives 40 years. Sean loses both his brother and his father, but he broke the cycle. In the years since the trial, Kay and Patrick have rebuilt their lives, not by forgetting what happened, that would be impossible, but by choosing every day to honor what Joe Morrissey gave them. Patrick grew up knowing 2 things about the night he lost his father. The first is that Joe Morrissey fought until his last moment to protect the people he loved. The second is that at 5 years old, Patrick did the same. Kay made it her mission to show others that survival is possible, not in spite of tragedy, but through it. She didn't hide from the story, she told it. Because she believed that somewhere out there, someone needed to hear that they could make it through. And she thinks about Sean, the young man who chose truth over blood, who walked into his father's house wearing a wire, knowing the men on the other side had already killed.
If you think I'm a snitch and I didn't do the right thing, then you're just as bad as the guy that committed that murder. So I don't care.
In all of the hatred, Sean was trying to do a little bit of good. Patrick and his mom Kay are living proof that even after tragedy, there is a life worth living.